You know, what's funny is I always look at like Amazon and Google and Microsoft and you know, to some degree Apple, and these are businesses that as they get larger, they go faster, right? The traditional enterprise gets bigger and goes slower, right? And the reason is that it's just a complete rethink about how to do things. And when I think about, you know, how I tried to describe this to people in the past, I use this pets versus cattle analogy, which maybe some of you heard about, which is sort of like, you know, you can treat your servers like pets or you can treat them like cattle. And when they're pets, they're all precious. You know, it's Bob the mail server. And if he gets sick, you know, it's all hands on deck to nurse him back to health, you know, get Bob back up. Whereas, you know, in the cattle way of looking at servers, that they're all numbered, and if one of the cattle gets sick, you take it out back and you shoot it and you replace it with another one. And that disposability of servers, that way of thinking about the world, that's inherent in the way that people like Google build their infrastructure. And the legacy way really brings a lot of burdens. I was talking to Oracle at a very senior level recently, and we were having a conversation about, you know, kind of the way that they thought about the world. And I said, is there any chance that the Oracle rack guys will get rid of the requirement for a quorum disk drive where all of the rack servers basically write to? And they said there's no chance. Right? Now it's crazy to have a distributed database all write to a single point of failure disk drive to negotiate which one is the master, right? That just, it sort of boggles the mind, right? It's a hardware requirement driven by software, where we're moving into the world where the software wants to deal with an abstraction, as Jesse said, that sort of like, you know, removes and hides all the underlying complexity. And you just have to get in that mentality. We're building cattle clouds. We're building, you know, cloud native applications. We're not, you know, going to bring the legacy with us.
So I want to jump on that. So you said sort of archaeological exploration of enterprise applications, and I think that's a great way to describe it. So you don't build a building to last for 200 years. You build a building to last for 50 years, right? And what we're starting to see, we've got a media company, top 3 media company. They've got, and these numbers are a little fuzzy, but 340 line of business applications. They're things written all the way from COBOL to whatever. They said, look, we're not going to be able to lift and shift these from what we're running today into a cloud architecture. We need to approach everything that we're doing differently. What they've done is begun a big initiative internally to build both a cloud architecture based on private cloud and platform as a service, and then an engineering team that can write applications on top of that architecture. And they're slowly and methodically going through all of his applications one by one, figuring out which one they actually need, which ones they can kill, and which ones they can rebuild to run on a cloud architecture. And they're rewriting it. So the last meeting we had about 2 weeks ago, they said, look, we're going to go from 340 to about 120 applications. We're going to rewrite all of them. They've got about 12 completed today. It's been a 2-year initiative. Those 12 included all of the framework tooling that they needed to actually build them for a cloud-native architecture. And now they can go through the rest of their architecture teams and engineering teams and rebuild the rest of them. You're never going to see an environment where legacy IT infrastructure is lift and shifted from traditional deployments into cloud. It just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't work, and nobody's satisfied with the results. But what you will see, and this is one of the powers, I think, of private clouds, are the ability to deploy infrastructure adjacent to legacy deployments and begin to do those rewrites, still connecting back into data sources. So this company still has an SAP installation. They're not going to get rid of that today. They may get rid of that in 3 to 5 years. But they're able to tie all these new applications back into that data source based on that private cloud implementation. That's the path I think we need to see, and that we'll begin to see more of over the next couple of years.
And there's a problem, though, when you build houses for 50 years. We currently have crumbling infrastructure throughout the suburbs here, and that is a great corollary to the state of a lot of the enterprise software. They should talk to their CFO about what sunk cost means and what sinking more cost after more sunk cost means and what that'll do to your business. At the end of the day, they do have to move forward and face far more irrelevancy if they don't. But I think what you said about some of the smaller rewrites are important. I don't know how many large rewrites I've seen be horrible ideas that any of us that have consulted for a long time caution people: do not rewrite your whole system. Don't pull a Netscape. Don't spend the next 3 to 5 years rebuilding all of the systems at once. This sort of move to cloud goes along very nicely with a move to SOA and other systems where it's not just at each server level, it's across all your services and everything. You need to rebuild your whole teams and your culture. So keep everything you have because it's running and start slicing things out. Make the new division that's cool and hip and does this section. And it will be a long, ongoing process because you need running software at every point of the way. So I think a lot of these movements go hand in hand, SOA, DevOps, cloud, and all of them, if you do them right and bake them into your culture, allow you to continue succeeding at every step of the way. You always need working software. Otherwise, what's the whole point of it anyways?
And I want to tie that back to multi-cloud architecture. I think one of the challenges with public clouds is, again, they exist in these massive hyperscale data centers, and sure, Amazon has 13 of those geos around the globe, and that's great. In certain areas like Ashburn, Virginia, you can be within sub-millisecond latency of an Amazon POP. That's wonderful, but there are plenty of on-premise existing data centers with the Fortune 1000 enterprise that don't sit there, or with middle market enterprise that aren't within realistic latency of a hyperscale data center. And so private cloud opens up the possibility for these enterprise companies to have that service catalog of delivery, but have it within proximity to the actual existing implementation. It's that proximity and that latency differential that will actually open up the potential of beginning to rewrite portions of applications, because applications need to talk to where the data resides, and that data resides on premise today. So that's the transformation that's happening right now that I think really fundamentally changed the way applications are developed.